Illinois is blessed with quite a bit of waterways, commercially navigable inland waterways. You've got the Mississippi River, the Ohio River, the Kaskaskia, the Illinois River, and the tributaries that make up the Illinois waterway. You got the confluence of the Missouri River right here in the state.
Hello and welcome to Illinois Corn TV. I'm your host, Shane Gray. Today we have the pleasure of hosting and talking to Paul Rohde. Paul's the Vice President of the Midwest Area Waterways Council. And Paul, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome, Shane. Great to be with you.
Thank you. Hey, we're going to get right to it. Just so all of our viewers know and our listeners understand what we're talking about here when we say Waterways Council. What is the Waterway Council mission, or what is it they're all about?
Well, we're a trade association focused on inland river navigation issues, commercial navigation issues. So lock and dam legislation is a big part of that. We're a broad coalition. Illinois Corn Growers Association is not just a member. They're actually in our leadership on our executive committee, and the other commodities that move by barge are represented as well. And we've got contractors and organized labor who are focused on lock and dam rehabilitation and capital improvements. So, and even we've got our first cruise line joined as members. So we're member-driven trade association, focus on issues that impact inland river navigation.
What is the importance of maintaining and modernizing these locks and dams on the river systems?
Well, it's vastly important. So Illinois is blessed with quite a bit of waterways, commercially navigable inland waterways. You've got the Mississippi River, the Ohio River, the Kaskaskia, the Illinois River, and the tributaries that make up the Illinois waterway. You got the confluence of the Missouri River right here in the state. It ranks 8th in the nation with 1,100 miles of inland waterways. The industries that are reliant on waterways provide 262,000 jobs. That's $177 billion in personal income. That's $2 billion going back to state and local tax revenue, $28 billion in gross state product, and almost $67 billion in total output. There's more than 70 million tons in any year moving through the state. That's the equivalent of almost 2 million trucks.
Yeah.
If you could take that off barge and put it on our roadways. The value of that 70 million tons is about not quite $20 billion. It varies every year. And pretty consistently, the top three commodities moving along Illinois' rivers are corn, soybeans, and food products. Most of that for export at 33, not quite 34 million tons. And this is by weight. So you've got corn, soybeans, food products. Second comes in at petroleum products at about 7.4 million tons. And then coal, ignite, and coal coke comes in at third at just over 7 million tons. And a lot of other products, including other chemicals, liquids, metals, gases, large specialty cargoes, the road salt we use for winter, cement, sand, rock, aggregates, and other construction inputs all move on barges on our inland waterways. They're really the underpinnings of the state's economy, and the infrastructure that is so important. Illinois' got 26 lock locations. I haven't done the research. I'm sure that's in the top 3 or so in the nation.
Yeah, I would agree.
Some interesting stats. Of those 26 locations, 88% of them have exceeded their design life of 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Only 15% of those locks have modern 1,200-foot size chambers, 4 of them to be exact.
And so what you're saying with that is, because this is what, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm thinking that, like maybe the average length of a barge is 1,200 feet. And with our locks and dam systems in Illinois, if they're not modernized, they might only hold 600 foot.
Most
length.
of them do.
And so you're going to have to break that down, and you lose your efficiency on moving that commodity.
Absolutely. They were built for 19th century steamboat traffic. And they also only have one chamber. Only 11% of the locks in Illinois have 2 chambers, making it a 2-way river. So if you've got 89% at single 600-foot chambers, you've got a single point of failure from shutting the river traffic down completely.
Corn dog or cornbread?
Cornbread.
What's the worst smell on the farm?
Diesel fuel.
Diesel fuel. Who drives better, you or your brother?
My brother.
Why?
Just sounds like the right answer.
More important, coffee or diesel?
Coffee.
If you had to wear a t-shirt every day that says one farm phrase, what would it be?
I love farming.
Well, that's cute.
You know, we talk about the importance of this and how important the efficiency of it is. Are we on track funding wise, or do we have the approval and money to go forward with the modernization of these locks and dams, or is there a little bit of a holdup anywhere?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack in that question. Let me start by saying, are we on track, I guess? So we've got 225 lock chambers and not quite 200 locations across the nation. That's a lot of funding needs for just our operation and maintenance. This is the reliability of the existing structure, saying nothing about increasing capacity. 80% of these locks are past that 50-year design life that I mentioned. Yeah. So you've got an increased risk of unscheduled closure, major disruptions to the supply chain, and an increased need for major maintenance. So WCI has been instrumental in increasing the Corps of Engineers operation and maintenance funding for locks and dams. Just over $2 billion program a decade ago. Now it's a $6 billion program today. That's from our working with our legislators on Capitol Hill. Now, that's a good news story, but it's still not keeping up with inflation or the growing needs as the infrastructure continues to age. So that trend line needs to continue going up. Well, we've got to maintain. Now, you talked about modernization. We've got the authorization and have for Illinois, for example, since 2007 for 7 new lock chambers of 1,200 feet in length that you mentioned, Shane. That's a capacity increase. The first one in line for that is Lock 25 in Winfield, Missouri. It is the southernmost 600-foot single chamber lock on the Mississippi River. And then there's 6 more after that, 2 on the Illinois, LaGrange and Peoria, and then 4 others along with Lock 25 on the upper Mississippi. That funding has been primarily through the infrastructure bill a few years ago, and it'll be running out. So we're going to need to go back to D.C. and fight for some more funding for fiscal year 27 pretty quickly here.
What do we, I don't know how it is in all the Midwest states, but I know here in Illinois, we've been dry for a long time and water levels have dropped. Does the depth of that water level, does it play a significant role in those locks and dam systems, or how does that work?
Well, ironically, no. Locks and dams were put into the Mississippi, Illinois, and other rivers. But let's just focus on here in Illinois. The Mississippi and Illinois rivers, they were meant for navigation. There were times before the dams were created and eventually became the concrete structures that they currently are. They eventually became that in the 1930s, but they go back farther beyond that. They were put in to make navigation more reliable. There were parts of the Mississippi River you could walk across in the third, fourth quarter of any given year if the conditions were dry enough.
Right.
So by creating this pool system with the dams holding water back, the Corps of Engineers is charged by Congress to create a 9-foot channel that's consistent. So when we have challenges, let's say south of St. Louis, especially between St. Louis and where the Ohio River comes into the Mississippi River, you've got some real challenges with water flow there because there aren't the lock and dams to hold water back.
Right.
So when we got low water, it's typically in towns like Memphis and farther south. The locks and dams are doing the exact job that they were meant to do.
Great.
Again, built all the way back in the 30s.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you, you guys have a big job here, and no pun intended here on this one, but how does the council itself kind of navigate the commercial needs of commercial navigation with that of, say, environmental needs, EPA, or do you run into a lot of those situations or issues?
Well, really, that's the headache of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They manage the river as a multi-use resource, and there are a lot of sometimes even conflicting priorities. Our focus is a rising tide raises all boats. And so we've been trying to build the portfolio, the funding for the Corps, which will help not just navigation, but all of the other missions of the Civil Works program that the Corps of Engineers has. Here, more locally, I mentioned the upper mist locks. When those were authorized, they also got authorization for the largest ecosystem restoration that the Mississippi River, the upper Miss anyway, has ever seen.
Right.
And so that really has paved a collaborative working relationship with some pretty well-known and well-regarded conservation groups. So I go to DC with groups like Ducks Unlimited and Audubon and the Nature Conservancy, among others. And we can say, look, we've got problems here with aging infrastructure, with eroding environmental conditions, but more importantly, we got solutions. And so that's the Navigation Ecosystem Sustainability Program, or NESP. And so all of these groups are advocating for NESP funding to not only improve the navigation infrastructure and also the ecosystem of the river.
Well, and that's, we interviewed Ducks Unlimited here on one of our previous podcasts, and some of the information that they were presenting, I'm like, I just never really thought about how much an organization like a Ducks Unlimited can be so beneficial, to a waterway or a commodities group or whatever it may be. But the two seem to go hand in hand, and when you can fix one, you're almost like fixing the other. So that is a great thing here. Hey, we had talked earlier a little bit off screen here about our representation, and whether it be D.C. or Capitol buildings or whatever it may be here at the state. Let me ask you this. If you could take all the members of Congress on a short little river trip, because I don't think they truly understand the significance of the navigation on the river system. If you could take them all on a short little river trip, what is the one thing that you would like for them to see, or at least maybe take back to the Capitol buildings with them, something from that journey?
Ooh, great question. And really interesting, because you're right. It is an issue that it's hard to get your brain wrapped around, and especially if you don't see it, like the infrastructure of locks and dams, or get on the river. There's an old saying, people forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And I'll apply that to getting out on the river. So it's one of the most peaceful environments I've ever experienced, being out on a tow and realizing you got millions of tons of commodities moving as barges and towboats are passing each other on the river quietly and in the beauty of nature. And if you figure that each of those 15 barges put together to make a tow is more than 1,000 trucks. So you've got 2,100 tractor trailers with, just two tows passing each other. So I would like them to experience and understand that, the multimodal comparison, and the fact that this is such a peaceful working environment. Not to say that the work site doesn't get hectic, because it does. The work that the deckhands and the crews do, it can potentially put their lives in danger. So the second thing I would want to tell legislators, or show legislators, is get them connected to the people who work on these tows and on the towboats to hear their stories. They've got a unique environment with the 6-hour watch on and then 6 off and then 6 on again for 24/7 during the 28 days that they're on a towboat. And then they travel home for a month before getting back on for another hitch of 28 days. It's a pretty unique lifestyle, not for everybody. But having legislators understand the lifestyle that they deckhands and the captains and the pilots and the engineers and the cooks and all of the team that makes the towboats work. I'd like for them to understand and appreciate that, and also the safety first, and how all these towing companies are putting the hands of their employees on this almost 100-year-old infrastructure, and it can be dangerous at times.
Absolutely.
All the time. Unlashing and relashing barges together so you can get through a lock that's half the size of the tow that you're moving downriver. It's ironic, you got these towboats with all of the GPS and all this technology of 21st century, and yet we're still going through these 1930s locks and dams.
What would you like to tell our viewers as far as your council's top priorities, maybe for the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so we've got to continue to bring appropriations in that maximize the capabilities of the diesel tax, the Inland Waterways Trust Fund, which we haven't even touched on, but that pays for a portion of lock and dam capital improvements. And the Waterways Council has been delivering more than $5 billion since 2014 on the annual construction funding that comes from Congress. Now, that represents an increase above the president's budgets from 51% increase in 2023 up to 842% increase in 2019.
Right.
And even more than that, when you look at fiscal years like 21 and 24, that included zero from the White House for construction. So we've got to keep the funding going. And with the funding, we keep the construction going, and finish what we start is the most important thing, especially in the next 5 to 10 years, Shane. Like you mentioned, we've got to continue that so we can start the other projects that are waiting, the backlog of projects like those other NESP projects. Another priority, I think, is for WCI to continue to be a leader in that broad coalition that I mentioned, especially here in the Midwest and the Mississippi River Basin. Agriculture, manufacturing, other economic development interests, the 5 upper Miss states, along with the conservation groups I mentioned, all working together to get the funding for not just the locks and dams, but the ecosystem restoration provisions. And then we've got to continue to fight for other policy changes in D.C. that benefit the towboat industry, the shipping industries like agriculture, keep products moving on the river.
Not to be corny, but why are rivers so rich?
Ooh. Shane, you're going to have to help me out here.
Because they have 2 banks. That one's not bad, right? We got to chuckle out of someone on that one.
Yep.
So
I like that.
That's a good one. Did you have one for me, or?
You know, let's stay with the maritime theme.
Okay.
I like that, the 2 banks. That's good. But we'll make this one international. So it's kind of maritime related, but international. So, Shane, you probably did not know that the Norway's Navy has put QR codes on their battleships. Do you have any idea why they would do that?
I have no idea why they would do that.
So when when Norway's Navy, those ships return to port, they can Scandinavian.
Okay, hey, I think we hit 2 home runs here, maybe on the corny part of the section. So, hey, Paul, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you coming on here and talking with us. You and the Waterways Council, you do great work, great partners to work with, and keep up the good fight. And I hope we can find the funding to get these projects started and get them completed.
Appreciate it, Shane. Thank you very much. Thanks to
You
Illinois
bet.
Corn, and we look forward to working with you.
10-4. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.